Hey friends, welcome back to the Big Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Tricia Brouk, founder of the Big Talk Academy, award-winning director, producer, and author. And this is episode 602. In this episode, I am super excited about talking with Julie McManus, who is an amazing speaker, a leader, a highly valued member of the Big Talk community. Julie is also a globally recognized speaker and trainer who inspires individuals to reach their fullest potential. She's worked on 5 different continents and is grateful for the life she's built with her spouse and furry companions. Julie is an empath and a serial fixer. As a graduate of the Big Talk Academy, Julie was featured on the Big Talk Academy virtual showcase, and recently she took a speak stage in New York and is truly one of the most generous, thoughtful, and kind leaders I've ever worked with. I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation with us today. Let's do this. Julie, I am so excited to have you on the Big Talk podcast as a featured guest today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited. And before we started recording, I always ask all of my guests if there's anything you need or you have any questions. And are you comfortable if I share with the listeners what you said?
No, that's fine. It's fine. Go ahead.
I'm not sure why I'm here, is what you said. Now, let's talk about what that means a little bit, because I did invite you to be a guest because I think you are a remarkable human. You are a masterful speaker. And you shared with me that you say yes to all kinds of things. So what's the hesitation?
The hesitation is that as preparation for this, I listened to a number of your podcasts, and I feel as though I might not be as accomplished as some of your other podcast guests. So it's a little bit of insecurity.
I find this so fascinating, and I'm really glad that we're just kind of like diving in head first to really, deep, profound, important topics. For those of you who have not met Julie yet, she has been in my community for a while, is a graduate of the Big Talk Academy. She was featured on the virtual showcase stage and recently took a speak stage in New York, and is one of the most generous, thoughtful, kind leaders that we've ever had in our community. And humble, clearly humble. She doesn't know why she's on the show. She doesn't feel as accomplished as all of the other guests, yet I'm sitting here thinking you're one of the greatest leaders that I've ever had in my community. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about how you are experiencing that disconnect from me. And then we're going to go to your backstory and where you came from and all that.
It's not a disconnect from you. I trust you implicitly or whatever, but it's a disconnect from me as I struggle. I guess it's imposter syndrome, right? I know that I've accomplished amazing things, and I know that people look up to me, and I know that I've had just such a blessed life, but I still struggle with what message other people are going to want to hear from me. I just don't feel like it's imposter syndrome. I know that.
Okay. All right. We're not going to do a live coaching session because we can do that offline. Yeah. However,
that's why I said yes.
I know. I'm so happy that you're here. I mean, I could spend like hours just hanging with you because I think that you're so special. And I have the privilege of being able to mentor you and coach you inside of the Big Talk Academy, but also observe you leading the other members. But before we go into the sort of protocol of the show, which is me asking you your backstory, I want to just reflect that Camilla from our cohort DM'd me on Facebook, and she had just watched your talk on the speak stage about self-love and confidence. I don't know if she reached out to you to share her being moved by that, but she reached out to me to speak about you. And so you are having the kind of impact and the ripple effect that sort of unspoken, invisible ripple effect that I speak about all the time when it comes to our speakers, that is happening, Julie. And this podcast is also a drop in the water of additional ripples. So we are about to get into it, listeners. And this little pre-production intimate conversation between Julie and I is sort of how we always go down, and you got to witness it. So welcome to the truth of how we communicate here in the Big Talk, which is pretty it's not the small talk here. It's called the Big Talk for a reason. So how did that feel when Camilla DM'd you?
It was the first thing in the morning. We're in different time zones, so that's the first thing I read in the morning, and it felt really good. It felt affirming that I was the person to give the talk, and I've had so much positive feedback about that. You're the person that needed to give that message, but it's still, and you know this, it was an uncomfortable message for me to give because it's not a place that I've ever been. So it was more affirmations that I was the right person to give that message.
And for those of you who are listening, you can actually watch Julie deliver this talk about self-love on the Speak channel and on the Big Talk podcast, the Big Talk YouTube channel, where we feature her virtual showcase speech, Big Talk. So I highly recommend, and we'll put all this in the show notes so you can find it easily, but I highly recommend you go and watch this because it will change how you think about loving yourself and giving others the opportunity to hold that for you until you can. So let's go back a little bit before we continue on. I always kick off these episodes by asking you to think about what led you to this point in time, literally this point in time with me right here today. And you can take us as far back as you want. And maybe it's the Facebook ad that you saw that connected us. So thank you, Facebook, for putting you into my life. But take us back as far as you want, Julie.
I've always kind of felt that I had something to prove. Growing up, I was not comfortable. I just always felt a little bit awkward. And so, this yes is, this is part of the whole yes thing, right? So if you're uncomfortable, then the only way to get comfortable, I guess, is to get uncomfortable. And so your class was uncomfortable, but it was a good uncomfortable, right? And so I guess my wanting to prove something to everybody, that maybe didn't have the confidence in me as I was growing up. So it's everything that I've done, every country I've traveled to, the volunteer work, everything is because of me trying to prove something to others. And I think part of it was trying to prove something to myself as well.
Where did you grow up, Julie?
Gurnee, Illinois, a little tiny town north of Chicago.
I didn't realize we were both Midwestern.
Yeah.
I'm from Arnold, Missouri. Wow. So there's something to that. When you grow up in the Midwest, I think you're taught to play small and to follow the rules and don't, ruffle any feathers. Did you experience that?
I think we had to play small by nature. It wasn't anything that, my parents suggested we do. It was just, we had our little community, and we had, I was one of not very many of my high school friends that went to college, and I knew out of the gate I was going to college. So it was, to a certain extent, yes, it was, just toe the line and do what you're supposed to do and don't make waves.
And where did you go to college? How far away did you get?
So my undergraduate's in Northern Illinois University, so a few hours away. It was just comfortable enough to be away.
Right. Same. I moved away about 2 hours also, so that I could, if I needed to, come back, but knew I could stay out if I needed to.
Mhm.
What you are a very organic leader. Did you study leadership, or is it something that you kind of learned about yourself and then cultivated?
So I think I learned about it myself and then cultivated. I've always, my first job, other than babysitting and working at the local grocery store and stuff, was in leadership. And I was tough on people. And I was like, you do what I say, I'm your boss, all those types of things. And because that's kind of what we were taught. And those were the examples of leaders that we had. And as I grew throughout my career, I learned that, um, and it took me probably longer than it should, but vulnerability in leadership, I never opened up about who I was, only in the last job, the fact that I was gay, type of thing. And so I learned that the more that I gave to my team and the more open and honest I was with them and vulnerable with them, they would do anything for me
Mm.
because I that all of my employees knew I had their back no matter what. And that is an absolute game changer. So
Tell me more about that in terms of being an influential voice and when it clicked for you that being the dictator was not going to get you the best uh, you know, work environment.
well, um probably in the last 20 years or so. I mean, I've been a leader for 40 some years. And so probably in the last 20. I I'm I'm an M&M, and I'm hard and crunchy on the outside and soft on the inside. And so
What color M&M are you, Julie?
oh, red. It
Uh-huh.
goes really nicely with my hair.
Yes,
Is that a color of an M&M? I don't even.
it
Is it?
is. Yeah, you're
Oh,
good.
okay. I know what they are, but you know, I've always approached, and I talk about this in my speech, this armor that I have on. And so if I approach things with armor, you can just get more done with people. And it stopped working. It worked to protect myself, but not to make sure that my team knew that I had their backs and that I would do anything for them and that I cared deeply about them. And so I removed it for others a long time ago, for myself just kind of recently.
Well, I'm so grateful that you did, and I can't imagine you being any other way. When you joined the masterclass, among a sea of hundreds, I remember specifically you came up on stage with me and shared one of your fears about your voice, the
Mhm.
literal sound of your voice.
Right.
And it was a really vulnerable share in front of everyone. And when you then joined us in the Big Talk Academy, one of the many things that stood out for me about you, Julie, was your willingness to always help. Um, I'll take notes for you. I'll take I'll make sure everybody's here. Make sure the names are taken, and I'll let people in. And you were just over and going over above and over what anybody else was doing. And you also led the group inside of the Facebook community. And so is this a role that you enjoy stepping into, leader, or is it just something that people kind of gravitate towards you for?
I think they gravitate towards me. I enjoy it because, and let's say we spend so much time at work in normal jobs. And if people hate their jobs, then it's just a miserable 8 or 10 or 12 hours. And as a leader, if you can make it fun, if you can make it where people know that they care about you, and so in the class as well, they used to call me the mama bear, because I'm the mama bear, but don't mess with my kids or whatever you want, my cubs. But it's a role that I've always played, and I always play it even when I go like see people outside. I'll help people outside. It feels good. It feels right. and I think we need a lot of that, or a lot more of that anyway.
I love this. I want to talk about right and wrong in just a second because I feel that it is so easy to differentiate between right and wrong. And it's not a gray area for me. So I want to talk about that in just a second. But before we do, can you talk about some things that you did do as a leader that are fun and that make people feel cared about?
Um, well, the silly one is my donkey, right? We would be in meetings and people would look sad, and and I don't know that I could say it, but send a picture on Messenger of my miniature donkey, because people think my donkey is cute. And so it was little things like that. I would always make sure to listen to people before calls, because we went remote, right? And so listen to people before calls, and they mention, hey, this is coming up, or this is coming up, or I'm worried about this. And 99% of the time would follow up on that and say, hey, how did it go? Or how did your kid do? Or how did, and people knowing that you see them is critical to leadership. And that's what I want people to do, is feel like I see them, and feel their struggles and those types of things.
I love that you're talking specifically about listening as being a leadership strength. I think that it is absolutely one of the top leadership strengths is to know
Right.
how to listen. And the follow up about the personal stuff is also really important. And if you, as a leader, are noticing what your team is doing or talking about, let's say they like to play golf, or I have a leader on my team who is in Canada, and she's a curler. So now I started watching curling in the winter so I can talk about it with her. So
Uh-huh.
I think those little details really make a difference.
Yeah.
Let's talk about right and wrong when it comes to being a human being and when it comes to leadership. I think that there is uh, an oversight right now in how simple doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing is. And I'd love to hear from you on that, Julie.
Don't understand the question.
Sure. Okay. So I'll give you an example of what I think is right and what I think is
Okay.
wrong. I think people throwing garbage out of their car on the side of the highway is wrong.
Mhm.
That is just it's black and white. There's nothing gray about that. It's blatant littering. You should not throw your garbage out onto the side of the road for someone else to have to clean up or to um, litter this gorgeous planet that we live on. So
Right.
I think there's so many things that are obviously right and wrong, and people are not owning their participation in what's right and what's wrong. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think people are, well, I don't know about right. Well, I think people are fearful to admit if they're wrong.
Hmm.
I think people right now are, um, standing their ground, and see, I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. I don't understand where you're going. So, no, go
As,
ahead.
as far as leadership and just understanding what's right and wrong, and it goes also to being able to take responsibility for your actions if they are wrong, or if
Mhm.
they
Yeah,
hurt somebody, or
yeah,
if you
yeah.
make a mistake of some sort. So
Yes,
I'm not trying to get political.
yes.
I'm trying to differentiate between great leadership, which is understanding the difference between right and wrong, and being willing to take responsibility for things
Oh,
that you do that
we,
are wrong.
yeah, you have to. I, if I, I'm quick to make assumptions. So if I made an assumption about a project we were working on, I'll be the first to apologize. Man, I messed that up. And, what do I have to do to fix that? And that goes, I mean, that builds up your trust account so well. And it is so easy. It is so easy in failing to admit a mistake as a leader, or a misstep as a leader, to take that, you could lose all trust. Just at the flick of a wrist.
Mm.
It's something that I always role modeled for the people that work for me because I want them to say, "Hey, oh, guess what? I just did." That's okay. It's okay that you did that. At least you owned up to it. My boss and my thing for my boss is always no surprises. I can't let you get blindsided by anything. So I don't care how big the mistake, as long as you let me know, then we can figure out how to fix it. But hiding things
Absolutely.
is not it's not a good way to lead or a good way to operate. Operating in fear is just it's unconstructive.
And operating in fear is, it becomes a cancer, and then everybody starts operating in fear.
Yes.
So good, Julie. Let's talk a little bit about your process of crafting your talk that you did for the virtual showcase and also for Speak about self-love and what that was like for you, and how I know it was hard for you because I was with you during the birthing of it.
Mhm.
But what was your process like, and how did you get to the other side of that? Because it's a remarkable talk, and you're so masterful.
Um, it happened. I mean, so the the story happened because I was paying attention to what was going on around me.
Mm.
And so every, it was just this aha moment after aha moment you know, um, of these things that happened that really changed my life. And so I guess it was important enough for me, although it was very uncomfortable, it was important enough for me to say, and I've been a self denier or a self hater or loather for a really long time. And I never realized the impact that that had on others. And then having that impact on the people that I loved, if I could, so it was important to me to share that so that others had the opportunity to make a choice to either continue to do that or not do that.
Are you prepared for the ripple effect of how many people you're going to impact who didn't realize they were self-loathing and how that was affecting their loved ones?
I I trust that it'll happen, and I think I'm prepared for it. Just with a little bit of feedback from the BTA showcase, and then the feedback I've gotten from others on the Speak talk. So yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust you and I trust George that it was the right speech at the right time, and it felt good and it felt comfortable up there saying it.
Yeah, I'm glad. I think that we've talked about this. You've heard me say this. And for those of you who are listening and watching and who follow me, you know that I say these big talks can change and even save lives. And I know that this talk is saving lives. And it is such a privilege and an honor to have you in this community and to call you a friend. And I'm just so grateful for you, Julie.
Thank you.
I would love to, we're going to talk about where our listeners can find you. But before that, you ready for some fast talk?
Sure.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
This one is curated especially for your audience. It's called Half the Sky. I'm an avid reader. If you can't tell, I've read everything behind me. But Half the Sky is a book about women, and the first quote is, "Women hold up half the sky." But it talks about all of the disadvantaged women and the things that they do. If you give them $1, they'll make 10. And it talks about gender violence, and it's I read it and I read it flying to South Africa to do my first bit of volunteer work, and it's truly an amazing book.
Amazing.
It's a game changer. So,
Thank you so much. I have
yep.
not read this, so I can't
Oh,
wait to get it as soon as we're off this call. Who's your favorite speaker and why?
Martin Luther King. I listened to this is on CD, right? Because I'm old, and listened to all of his speeches on a long road trip, and I just think he is genuine and he's authentic, and he it's just kind of natural. It doesn't seem forced. So
Mm,
I just and his messages are simple. It just seems like a down to earth guy with simple messages.
amazing. How do you memorize?
Um, uh, I replace, so this voice in my head goes 24/7. So I replace the whatever I'm talking to myself about with the speech. I'll just start in the beginning, start in the end, start in the middle type of thing, and just go over and over and over and over again.
That must be a relief when you have to memorize something.
Yeah, that I have it constantly. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Amazing.
part of it is this is one of the things I was talking to the other people in our cohort. It's your story, and the idea is so that you can tell it, and you may mess up, but you're going to remember it. It's your story. So it's not that difficult when your story. If you're manufacturing something, then it's more difficult. But if it's yours and you own it and it happened to you, you got this.
You got this for sure. What do you like to do the day before you speak?
I go to bed early and then I ruminate with this story in my head. But I don't. I mean, I make sure I drink a lot and make sure I go to bed early. I don't have
Amazing.
any like major rituals.
Okay. And what podcast are you currently obsessed with?
Um, so I like Ambani's Dancing in the Discomfort Zone, and of course I like yours. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
Amazing.
I think
Well,
it's neat to hear this. It's neat to hear the journeys, and so I just very different types of podcasts, but they're both just a very value added
dancing in the discomfort
zone.
zone. Okay, amazing. We're going to put all of this in the show notes. I would love to know where our listeners can get in touch with you and where our listeners can find you to book you to speak at their events.
I am active on LinkedIn. Julie McManus. I think it's Julie McManus, Ohio. I have my own website, julieannmcmanus.com. That you can see a lot of my work that I've done, and also reach out to me there.
Amazing. We'll put all these links in the show notes so you can also watch Julie speak and have access to these books and all of these tips. And it is always a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you for being a featured guest today.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you. And for those of you who are watching on the YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get access to our latest videos. And for those of you who are listening, we so appreciate you taking your time, spending it with us. We know your time is precious. Remember, everybody, your voice matters. Big love.